Well, hey, how are you? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Welcome to the channel. This is where Jesse talks all things TDCJ, not so much about the military. However, that is in the works. Got my Jack Torrance shirt going on today. Guys, it is frigid, freezing out. We got this winter mix, as they like to call it here on the East Coast, headed in. Gonna try to stay hunkered down, get through this. It's been a while since I've given you guys any kind of videos. Wanted to take a step back, take a little break, enjoy some of the absolute hilarious comments that a lot of y'all love to leave me, and yeah, it's interesting. But let's stick to the script for today. Earlier on, when I first started doing this channel, I think it might have been, I don't even remember what number it was. I know it was a very early video. I did a video of me cooking a type of prison spread. It involved ramen noodles, refried beans, and hot dogs. If you're interested, check it out. It's not going to make Gordon Ramsay's top anything. However, if you're in a pinch, you got a couple items hanging around the house, you can throw it together, make you a spread. I had somebody, I guess they were watching the video, and they sent me a message asking about two main questions. Number one, how good and plentiful is the food in prison? And number two, what the hell is food, loaf? All right. Well, I'll go ahead and address the first one. How good is it? That depends on your level of hunger. One of the things an inmate and an officer working a 12-hour shift plus overtime can very easily find themselves is hungry. They are served 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The times are really weird. I know with the styles, breakfast I think was served around 3 or 4 in the morning. I know it was served before I got there at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Sometimes lunch would roll out around 10. We would have dinner served before I got off shift at 6 in the evening. Food was a very important thing in the prison. Number one, it was a necessity. It had to be provided to the inmates, and it was actually a benefit to the COs and the other staff, whatever, who worked there. You go to the ODR, officer's dining room, you could eat for free. Yes, it was cooked by inmates. I never had a problem with it. I ate at the ODR all the time. I take shit home with me to go. Unfortunately, we're supposed to do that. It was considered bringing stuff into the facility you weren't supposed to was contraband. Leaving the facility with stuff was contraband. Even though it was food, it wasn't altered, yada yada. You get the idea. Anyway, I ate in the ODR all the time. I only worked the chow hall in general population a few times. When I was on OJT, breaking in, the few times that I worked utility boss, we'd work chow. Inmates would file into it. Big concrete building, had the tables as a square, canted at I guess a 45-degree angle. So instead of looking at, your typical, it was like, Lord, this is awful. Yeah, you get the idea. Take a square, turn it 45 degrees. It had the 4 round seats attached to it. The guys would get the trays. They'd sit down, eat. They'd take the tray, turn it into the scullery, stand by the wall, wait for the supervisor outside to open it. They'd roll out. The times that I did work in the chow hall, I didn't get a chance to pay attention to what was on the tray. I was too busy watching the guys, plus trying to watch my freaking back. It was surprising. Big surprise. Shocker. I wasn't a popular CO. All right. So I really didn't get a chance to really see what was on those in that. SEG, we served them trays inside their cells. What I do remember being on the trays was usually some kind of a soupy mush. Pulled pork was really popular. I don't mean popular as in everybody loved it, but it was a popular food item to be served at the Styles. I don't know about the other prisons. Sorry, can't say anything about those. It would come in all forms. It'd either be pulled pork on the tray, it would be in some kind of a stew, some kind of a manager special liquid mixed up porridge. There was always some kind of a bean, either pinto, navy, kidney, black-eyed pea, some kind of bean, and a vegetable. Carrots were extremely popular. I don't know why. There would be raw-ass carrots in, I guess, just water. Could have been dishwater, for all I know. So they'd have their vegetable, their bean, and some kind of a meat product. Very rarely was there any kind of dessert. Thinking back to it, I don't ever remember any kind of cake, cookie, nothing. Beverage, it was some kind of color beverage. Red, orange, purple, flavored with saccharin. And I'll always remember the sign posted up on the wall of the ODR right next to the trough where that beverage was contained, and you'd serve it yourself. Warning, saccharin has been known to cause cancer in lab rats. Okay, smoking causes cancer, breathing the air causes cancer, all that kind of stuff. And it had to have the warning sign right there. Didn't stop anybody from drinking it. Pause for hydration. To the viewer who commented, no, I wait for no one. It's Sunday and I'm home. Feel free to join me if you guys want to. The biggest problem, though, there wasn't a whole lot of the food. I was usually so busy popping the slots, throwing the trays in, not literally, sometimes not literally, throwing the trays in, getting them thrown back at me, inmates beating, banging, trying to run game. I'm either a diet, I'm not a diet, this ain't what we're supposed to be getting today. The guys who claim to be Muslim, is that pork? Hey, I'm pork free, man. Motherfucker, you about to be dinner free is what you're about to be. Take this shit. I got rounds I gotta do, man. Always some kind of fight with those guys. Where the hell was I? Anyway, I didn't get a chance to pay too much attention to what was on the trays, other than I do remember there wasn't a lot. Every now and again, there would be burritos. And I remember so many times, it'd be a burrito, black beans, cornbread. That's what it was. Cornbread, instead of cake, was served quite regularly. Probably because cornmeal is cheap, it's easy to make. They probably didn't even use an egg in it. You know, normal cornbread, cornmeal, milk, egg, break it, throw it in the pan, throw it in the oven. Pretty sure they just took cornmeal, milk, big sheet pan, just threw it in, cut it up into squares. That would be what was on those trays. There were so many times I'd put the tray on the thing, hand would come out, it'd grab the burrito, leave the tray. Stand there for a second. Hey, you gonna take the tray, man? Nah, you good? Okay. Take the tray back up. Didn't even want the beans or the cornbread. Why? I don't know. Didn't have time to ask, but that happened quite regularly. A lot of times the guys just wanted that burrito. The biggest thing, as I already said with the trays, there wasn't a whole lot of food on it. So unless the guys were making commissary or somehow growing their own food in the cells, yes, there were times doing cell searches, you would find a garden in there. There are times underneath the bed, but there was no sunlight, there'd be a garden going underneath that bed. Don't know how. One of those mysteries of prison. That's all they would want, just the burrito. So, was it good? If you're hungry, yes, anything and everything is good. Was it plentiful? No. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys did find themselves going hungry. Henceforth, while the ones who did make commissary, here comes the trafficking and trading. Ramen noodles, biggest popular thing. It was easy to bust up, flatten down, slide it under the cell, hook it with the fishing line, move it into the next cell, and all they need is some hot water from there. All right, I got to talk about this. Oh, man, that stuff is nasty. Excuse me. Okay, food loaf, a.k.a. neutral loaf, a.k.a. disciplinary food, a.k.a. the hockey puck, a.k.a. whatever you want to call it. The first time I had heard about food loaf was in the academy. We were having our class on AdSeg, and it was talking about food that was going to be served, how it was going to be served, what happened in the case of disciplinary fractions. And I remember the instructor teaching it. He was a retired warden. He had hired back on as a sergeant, and he was teaching at the academy. Old dude. He probably was there when Ruiz was still Estelle versus Ruiz. He was probably there even before Ruiz was a criminal. You know, he's probably born that way. Anyway, he was teaching us that class and talked about the food loaf. He said whatever food that they were going to have on the tray, let's say it's pulled pork, greens, carrots, beans, and cornbread, they're going to take all this food, throw it into a blender, grind it all up until it's in a mush, take it, dump it out, dump a bunch of cornmeal on it, form it up till it's in a loaf, put it in something. I don't know if it went in a loaf pan, a bowl, or if it just went in just like it was. Put it in the oven, bake it, and there you go. Why? Why can't they just eat on the tray? Well, I would find out not too soon, very later on. Food loafs was given to the disciplinary inmates. It wasn't a general population thing. It wasn't a chow hall thing. Anytime you tried to serve someone food loaf, man, the fight was on. I never understood why until I tried it. I never understood why it was such a fight trying to feed those guys food loaf. And that's exactly what it was. Whatever meal they're supposed to be provided. Breakfast, let's say breakfast was pancakes and some oatmeal. It was going to get ground up, mixed in with cornmeal, baked, and served just like that. Whatever lunch was going to be. Let's say it was that burrito. Black beans, some carrots. They're going to grind it all up in the blender. It's going to puree. They're going to dump cornmeal in that. That's the thickening agent. It's going to dry itself up, make it into a loaf. They're going to throw it in the oven, serve it like that. You always knew you had food loaf because when they pushed those food carts in, the food loaf would be sitting on top of it. It'd be in a brown paper sack, and with some kind of marker, it would have the cell number written on it. Number 17, whatever it was. The reason they would get served food loaf, they had done some kind of disciplinary infraction. They had either jacked the slot, breached the cell, chunked on somebody, killing, which was masturbating, killing on one of the females that had come in the cell, either the law library, the nurse, one of the female COs, some kind of disciplinary infraction. Or the CO went to hand them a tray and they knocked it back off and went from there. You were supposed to tell the inmate, sit down on his bunk, pop the slot, take the food loaf, set it on the tray, step back, inmate was going to get it, and then you would close the slot. Do you think it ever went like that? Absolutely not. Very first time I served food loaf, I always remember it. Percy Jones, 5 foot tall, black guy, little silver truff right on. Always kept a good shave. Most of them did stay pretty good shaven. Little silver truff, silverback gorilla. Now I say silverback gorilla, I mean beat and bang on that cell door all freaking day. He was on a bunch of meds. Everybody back in SEG was on some kind of meds. If he got off his meds, or if the pill nurse gave him the wrong kind of meds, here we go. When he was on his meds, I never had problems with the guy. Didn't have a problem taking him out, take him to the day room, take him to the shower, pass by the cell. How you doing today, Percy? Slow roll, boss. That's usually the main thing he'd say. Whatever the hell it meant in his brain, is what it was. If he was off his med, I'm not even going to try to act like he was. If he was off his med, silverback gorilla, jumping around the walls, beating and banging on the doors. Okay. Getting ready to serve food loaf. Still a boot-ass rookie. Coming down the walls. Going on down. Time to serve the food loaf. Partner pops the slot. Moves on down to the next one. I've got the food loaf in hand. I set it down on the slot. Hand and arm comes flying out. Knocks that thing out of the way. It goes flying. Almost hits me. I step back. Here's an arm and a face sticking outside the cell. And man, the most barrage of verbal, motherfucker, I don't know, guy, food loaf, motherfucker. YouTube doesn't like it when we cuss a whole lot. It's hard to do a prison video without the profanity, excuse me, use your imagination. Man, here we go. Now he's got the slot jacked, trying to talk him back into it. He's yelling, beating, banging, hollering. Here we go. Old Jones responds to it. My fat ass Jones comes in. He's like, Carter, why didn't you throw it in his cell? I look at it. I said, what? That's food loaf. You're supposed to tell him to sit down, pop the slot, throw it in, and then close it. Well, I didn't know that, man. Throwing his food on the ground. And I always remember him looking at me. These are not human beings. They're inmates. Walks his fat ass off. Okay, that kind of resonated with me a little bit. And I know the ones around me heard that. Just another reason why Jones, not a very popular individual with the inmates or with me. I do apologize for that. Man, this climate's just been so dry. Skin so dry. Getting over a cold. Just constant changes in the weather. Unfortunately, the proper way to serve food loaf, and I learned this later on, you tell the inmate, sit down. Inmate knew he was getting food loaf. They do everything that they could to argue their way out of it. They're not on disciplinary. Somebody signed them up for it. Health concerns, allergic, feigned suicide, whatever. Everything they could to get out of food loaf. I learned after that one, when you got to serve food loaf, and I hated having to do it, you tell the inmate sit down on his bunk. When he did, I popped that slot, dropped that sack in, I'd shut that slot. No sooner had the slot been closed, the dude would be right up on that door, beating, banging, hollering, spitting through the chicken wire. Sometimes blood, shit, piss, mess would come flying out, have some kind of concoction ready to go with it. They had done something to be deserved to be fed that nasty old loaf. And serving it was not an easy thing to do. There were quite a few times I'd tell him sit down on his bunk. He wouldn't do it. He'd beat and bang on the door. I'd tell him, you don't sit down on that bunk, I'm leaving. Still wouldn't do it. I'd walk on down. Dude didn't get his food loaf. If I had time, I'd bring it back to him. A lot of times, I didn't have time for it. Y'all can say whatever y'all want to. That's just how it was. That was working in SEG. One of the days, I don't even know what was inside this nasty old thing. I wasn't able to serve it to him. Ended up going back, leave it sitting on the cart. For whatever reason, when the SSIs, trustees, when they came back to take the cart, they knocked the food loaf off the top of it, knocked it down on the floor, and they pushed the cart away. Well, I was working in the picket. I'd already swapped out. Two guys that were on the floor, they picked up the sack, they brought it, and they set it in the window in the picket. They did that because they didn't want one of the guys that was coming in or out, one of the SSIs, they didn't want him to get it and try to trade it for something else. So it's sitting in the window, and I'm chilling in the picket. Day's going on. It's getting a little bit later. Things are quieting down. A lot of times, as the day would go on, the mates would get quieter. They burn themselves out. I'm hanging out, and I glance over. There's that old paper sack. You could see grease stains on it. And so I took the sack, opened it up, and it's about that thick, about that big. Looked like a halfway deflated football kind of thing. And it was all cornmeal. I sniffed it. Like, okay, didn't smell too bad. I hadn't had a break yet. It was late in the day. Hadn't been able to go to the ODR. I don't even remember what pod I was working. Might have been D pod, where everybody hated me. I had multiple hits out on me. So I got this sack of food loaf. Like, fuck it. Ain't nobody gonna eat this. I'm gonna go ahead and eat this thing. Broke a piece of it off. Took a bite. Okay. Cornbread. The outer edges was just cornmeal. The actual food was further on inside. I took a bigger bite of this thing. I got about 3 bites into it. Spit it back out. Whatever was inside that thing, I don't even know what was on the tray that day. Whatever was inside it was cold. It was mushy. It was just straight up bad. Best thing I could describe. I've looked this up a couple of times. There are videos out on YouTube of people who cook food loaf in their house just to sample it and try it. I looked up some of the ingredients that could be in the thing. Some kind of mystery meat product, spinach, applesauce, a couple of carrots, and some beans. All ground up, mixed in with that cornmeal, and made into a loaf. Now you would think all those food items on the tray, not bad. Not bad at all. For some reason, when you grind it all up and you mix it in with cornmeal and make that thing into a loaf, what we call where I come from Mexican cornbread. Cornmeal, ground beef, onions, jalapenos, a little bit of salt and pepper, maybe some bell pepper in it. You mix all that up in with the cornbread, you make that, shredded cheese, mix all that up in with it. That's a meal right there. Man, I'll eat on that for days. Same kind of concept. Doesn't come out good. I actually did make this at the house one day. I followed the recipe. There's a lady on YouTube. I don't remember her channel. She cooks all different kinds of things. I made this one day, thinking at the house maybe it wouldn't be all that bad. Salisbury steak, chopped up into pieces. That was the best kind of mystery meat thing I could come up with. Some tomato sauce, some collard greens, a couple of teaspoons of applesauce. Oh, I don't remember what else went into it. Once you had all that mushed up, dump a bunch of cornmeal in it. Make all that up. I baked it in a loaf pan like I do with a meatloaf or cornbreads. Baked it in with that. Didn't smell bad whatsoever. Man, when it came out, it's no wonder those dudes would be so pissed off trying to get fed that. Just bad. So, moral of that story, if you go to prison, if you're in prison and you're watching this, or if you're at home, you got a bunch of leftover ingredients laying around, you wonder what to do with them, don't get on food loaf in one way, shape, or form. There have been a lot of lawsuits that have gone on throughout the country stating that it's inhumane, cruel and unusual punishment, hazardous treatment. They've all been shot down by either state Supreme Courts or the federal Supreme Court. It's just one of those things that happens. Guys, I hope this answers the questions of good, plentiful, and what is food loaf. If you do try it at your own risk. Let me know how it works out for you. If you do end up trying it, I'm sure we'd all love to hear about it. Guys, I hope y'all's new year is all going great. Stand by. We got this winter mix rolling in. Everybody stay warm. Take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing everyone in the next video. Lastly, hydrate. Take care, folks. Carter's out.